Wet markets have been accused of being a hotspot for viruses that sometimes jump from animals to humans. Critics say they're an incubator for disease, and many people think that they are the source of the coronavirus pandemic that is currently spreading across the world.
The virus may have originated from a market in the city where people can buy an assortment of wild game meat.
CNN has obtained this video filmed inside the market showing that more than seafood was on offer for sale.
Wild animal wet markets have long been recognized as a major pandemic threat.
Well, I'm going to write a letter to the World Health Organization and to the Chinese ambassador asking them to close the Chinese wet markets.
But are wet markets really to blame? I'm standing in front of one of Hong Kong's famous wet markets. Here, wet markets are more tightly regulated than they are in mainland China, but it's not hard to find live animals for sale. Wet markets are often where you'll find the freshest produce and meat, sold right on the street. But ever since the start of the coronavirus, wet markets are being viewed in a different light. According to the most accepted theory, a wet market in Wuhan was ground zero for the coronavirus outbreak. Health officials point to a range of wild animals that were sold in the market as a potential source of the virus.
The wild animal trade in China was a $74 billion industry in 2016, according to a government report. A different report found that about 97 species of wild animals were for sale across different markets in southern China. Animals for sale included snakes, peacocks, and bats. While a majority of the wild animals sold in China are used for fur production, food is the second largest market for wildlife. The number of markets that sold wild animals in China is hard to track because wild animal trading can blend in with other stalls. Wildlife can even be sold online. But wet markets aren't alone to blame. The concept of a wet market has existed for hundreds of years, and not just in China. Outdoor open markets are a staple of cultures around the world, from South America to Africa to Southeast Asia.
Here in Hong Kong, markets take many forms. Some can be found right on the street, while others are located in commercial buildings. One of the biggest misconceptions around wet markets is that they're always wet. In China, there are dry and wet markets. In wet markets, you'll find perishable goods like fresh fish and vegetables, while dry markets have longer-lasting products like nuts or sugar. Usually, both markets will be in the same space, but the one that always stands out is the wet market. For someone who has never been to these markets before, the experience can be jarring. Huge crowds pass by stalls full of fresh meat and fish. Officials and scientists say the problem arises when markets sell wild animals that host diseases that might jump to humans.
Wet markets, which also have wild animals, will provide an environment for contact between humans and any pathogens, including viruses. I see wet markets as part of culture and East Asia. Would it be possible to make them safer? Of course it is. See? In theory it is. So you just have better hygiene, better cleaning procedures, and you also monitor what is being sold. So for example, I don't think selling wild animals is something that should be allowed. We need to understand the reasons why people are consuming wild animal meats, and we need to try to change that demand.
Since the outbreak, many markets in mainland China have been banned from selling wild animals for food. But even before the epidemic, China's food trade had been changing rapidly. Some cities like Beijing and Shanghai have moved to demolish traditional markets and turn them into supermarkets.
The future of wet markets in China might be in jeopardy, but not from the coronavirus, rather because of technology. These days, people in Chinese cities often order their produce and groceries using their smartphone, and they may not go to the market themselves.